Welcome to Close Listening. I'm Zach Morgenstern, joined as always by silent co-host Ludwig von B. And the album I listened to for the first time recently and am reviewing today is Belladonna by Stevie Nicks. This is from 1981, so it's her first solo release after leaving Fleetwood Mac. Though, as I've seen with some of the music she recorded later in her career as well, oftentimes she wrote songs years in the past and she would only get the chance to record them, later in the Fleetwood Mac years or in her own solo career. This one opens with its title song, Belladonna. Belladonna, of course, literally translates as beautiful lady, but it also is the name of a poisonous plant. And the lyrics themselves seem to be a sympathy for a strong, witchy type. It's a uniquely Stevie Nicks composition in that it both has a beautiful flow to it, but it also sounds kind of messily stream of conscious. It doesn't quite have that catchy melody thing going for it, though it's not too weird either. I guess you'd have to listen to it to know exactly what I mean. But again, also capturing that contradiction between but also capturing that contradiction between wanting to make something beautiful and writing about the outcast and the strange. Track number 2 is called Kind of a Woman. This is a dirge of a song and it's about an affair, and it just strikes a unique tone in that it expresses anger, but not as rage, but in this kind of analytical, sad, yet brutally honest state. It's a simple but quite a brilliant composition, and then gets a little musically experimental when Ben Montench of the Heartbreakers got to compose a little classical sounding bridge. Track number 3 is one of the big ones on this album. It's called Stop Dragging My Heart Around. So I actually saw Stevie Nicks in concert about a month ago, and when she introduced this one, she said she was almost done making the Belladonna album, and some of the people behind the scenes said, "We like this, but there's not a hit on it." I have no idea what the heck they were talking about because track 6, which we'll get to in a second, very obviously, it seems in hindsight, had hit potential, but they wanted to bring in a song by an outside songwriter, and Stevie Nicks did not like this idea. And they said, well, what if it's Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers? And she very much admired their music. So they took this song that Tom Petty was actually planning to put on his Hard Promises album, but they re-recorded it so Petty's lead vocals were removed and it could be a duet with Nicks being the primary singer. This one makes for an interesting fit on this record because there are a lot of songs on here about ambivalent romantic relationships, but whereas those were very broody and contemplative, this one is kind of playful and it's kind of nagging failed couple dynamic. It might not have sounded as playful if it was just Petty singing the lyrics originally, then they might have some genuine bite. But when it's Nicks and Petty going back and forth in kind of mock angry voices, this almost works as the comic relief on the record. Track number 4 is Think About It. This is a very bright sounding rocker, perhaps more of a heartbreaker sounding song than Stop Dragging My Heart Around. And supposedly one that Stevie Nicks wrote for Christine McVie when, maybe trying to talk her out of, or at least comfort her as she was preparing to divorce from John McVie. But beyond the specifics, the more general sweet message of the song is saying, oftentimes people will end relationships because of the heat of the moment, but you have to look at the bigger picture. As she sings, heartbreak of the moment is not endless. Track number 5 is another good one. It's called After the Glitter Fades. And Stevie Nicks, I don't know how well connected she was at this point, but when she did originally write it, she envisioned Dolly Parton singing it. What's interesting about this one is it's a nuanced position. It seems like a sad song at first because it's talking about life in Hollywood after the glitter, the glamour fades, but it actually says it's a pretty good life. Even once the fame stops being exciting, it's cool to get to know people, to, get to do your art for a living. But what makes this one even more interesting is that it was written years before this album was recorded. In fact, before Stevie Nicks was a famous or successful person at all. So it was her optimistic premonition of what Hollywood life maybe would be like. So as I said, I don't know who behind the team of this record did not think Edge of 17 was going to be a hit, but this is an absolute showstopper. And it opens with this simple yet intense riff that the first time I heard the song, I thought they ripped it off of Eye of the Tiger, Of course, Eye of the Tiger is a song that actually came out a couple of years later. So it's kind of sad that that's the one I got exposed to first, when Edge of 17 is the one that really gave us this classic sound. So this is a song that was inspired by the deaths of John Lennon and an uncle of Stevie Nicks. So they passed away around the same time, and Nicks was kind of overwhelmed by sadness. Yet the song seems like it's from the perspective of a 17-year-old, which Stevie Nicks would not have been when these events took place. I guess she was 32 when these events took place. So she's intentionally depersonalizing it. So it's not just a piece of autobiographical trivia, but rather captures a more universal emotion. And the patchwork way in which she writes her lyrics in this song in particular becomes apparent when one learns where the title came from. She was having a conversation with Tom Petty's wife, Jane Benyo, and Jane Benyo said, "Oh, I've known Tom for a very long time. In fact, I met him when he was just at the tender age of 17." Apologies for the caricatured Southern accent, but the point is Stevie Nicks heard age of 17 as edge of 17 and thought that phrase sounded very poetic. And she said to Benyo, "I'm going to write a song with that title." So this image for her of a young Tom Petty, someone Stevie Nicks always really liked. So I guess getting to picture him as this image of teenage innocence and juxtaposing that with the pain of these deaths, she basically put together these completely unrelated observations she had made and created this wonderful mood piece in what is a song that is very chaotic. Like none of the verses quite sound the same, but still undeniably catchy, and both with the loud intensity of rock and roll and the emotional conviction of more singer-songwriter music. Track number 7 is called How Still My Love. Nicks apparently views this as an unusually sexual song, and I guess there's kind of like a vaguely sultry nightclub feel to it, but it's so subtle to me that this must mostly be in her head. It kind of has like a detective noir ambiance to it, if anything. Track number 8 is another big one. It's called Leather and Lace, and this one was recorded as a vocal duet with Nicks's romantic partner, Don Henley of Eagles. But the origin of this one, she was commissioned to write this for the country singing legend Waylon Jennings, who was doing a duet album with his wife, Jessie Coulter, that was to be called Leather and Lace. So Waylon and Jessie Coulter, for whatever reason, didn't end up recording the song. I think it might have been Stevie Nicks procrastinated too much, but she and Don Henley got to. So Stevie Nicks is someone who writes a lot of love songs, but rarely straightforwardly happy ones, always ambivalent songs about turbulent or ill thought out relationship. And this is a song where she goes back and forth between asserting her strength and asserting the way she is captivated by others. I mean, I haven't listened to the Waylon Jennings Jessie Coulter album, but my sense in there is almost she's lace, I'm leather, tough and soft. Whereas sung from Nicks's perspective, it becomes much more interesting because it's about both people simultaneously being leather and lace. Track number 9 is called Outside the Rain. So in these ambivalent Stevie Nicks love songs, it seems like admiration is a running theme. And one impression I get through this song, and we're going to talk about this more, but the final track, The Highwayman, is Nicks is someone who it comes across like she had trouble separating her ambitions from her romantic desires, like the way she expressed her own creative interest, her artistic side, her intellectual side was in experiencing attraction for very charismatic men who maybe also had that side, but might be difficult in other ways. And this song, with its lyrics about struggling to get through someone, looking at them through the rain, it kind of gives off that impression. So track number 10, The Highwayman, has a similar meaning, and Stevie Nicks has explicitly commented on this one because she said it's inspired by her view of rock stars as modern day Robin Hoods, taking from the rich and giving to the poor, but also in the outlaw way, being a bit elusive. As a lyric goes, alas, he was the highwayman, the one that comes and goes, and only the highway woman keeps up with the likes of those. And she, in all her magic, with hands as quick as light, took him to be a challenge. So there we go, ambition expressed through romantic attraction, and went into the night. So this is my second time reviewing a Stevie Nicks album, and previously I did her later album, Trouble in Shangri-La, and this style of ambivalent love songs about fixating on difficult but impressive love interests clearly seems to be a pattern. But this is a stronger record musically. I mean, Edge of 17 is such an amazing song, but some of the ones I hadn't heard before, like Think About It and After the Glitter Fades, were equally enjoyable to listen to. Kind of a Woman too, because Stevie Nicks is someone who's seen her music seem to change with the pop trends. So in Trouble in Shangri-La, which came out in 2001, it was kind of a contemporary quasi country sound. Her work a bit later in the 80s would be very synth, techno heavy kind of sounding thing. But this is Nicks at the intersection of rock and roll and singer-songwriter music, the music I genuinely like. So if you like that stuff, if you like her Fleetwood Mac stuff, this is going to make for a very good listening experience, both in terms of the music and the quality of the lyrics. I'm Zach Morgenstern. This is Ludwig von B. See you next time.